Several episodes ago, we made sauerkraut using an 18th century recipe. And sauerkraut was a well-documented food for sailors and soldiers in the 18th century. Today, we're going to be making a sauerkraut soup right here in the camp. Thanks for joining us today on 18th Century Cooking with James Townsend and Son. If you have not seen our sauerkraut episodes, both the homemade sauerkraut and the pickled cabbage, make sure to go back and watch those videos. I'll put a link to them in the description section of this video. If you haven't tried out this kind of sauerkraut, and say maybe you're not a big fan. I'm not a big fan of sauerkraut.
I'm not either.
Josh isn't a big fan of sauerkraut either, at least until we tried this homemade sauerkraut.
This is good. I'll eat this stuff. I mean, it's okay.
Right. It's much better than anything you're going to buy at the store. So even if you're not currently a fan of sauerkraut, go ahead and give this a try. I know you will like it better. Let's get started on this sauerkraut soup. This is such an easy recipe. We're going to start off here with a little bit of a soup base. Beef broth, or what we've used here is portable soup in our recipe. If you're interested in portable soup, I'll put a link to portable soup episodes that we've done in the past. Also, if you've boiled your beef, perfect. You can use that boiled beef water as your base for your soup. So there are only a few ingredients in this soup. We've got our beef broth and we've got onions. Actually, I'm using today pickled onions. Pickled onions were very popular in the 18th century, and they may have been used by the military, but most likely officers. This would have been an expensive kind of thing. Today we're using pickled onions. You can use regular onions, just raw onions, cut them up and put them into your broth and let them simmer for a while. I can just toss these straight in. And the last ingredient that goes into our soup is the sauerkraut itself. And we're going to let this simmer for just a little bit. There's a lot of documentation for sauerkraut for sailors and soldiers in the 18th century. And the reason for this has to do with scurvy. Scurvy was a big killer of soldiers and sailors. During the age of sail, more sailors died from scurvy than died from all other causes. Disease, war, all those things combined, scurvy was a bigger killer. That leads us to James Lind. James Lind was a physician in the 18th century, and he discovered a cure for scurvy. Here's a little piece out of his treatise on the prevention of the scurvy. It's 1753. He says, "Every common sailor ought to lay in a stock of onions. I never observed any that used them fall into the scurvy at sea. When this stock is exhausted, the captains may have recourse to their pickled small onions, and with fowls, muttons, or portable soup, and the pickled cabbage before mentioned, of which the Dutch fell great quantities. They will be able to make a broth at sea, almost the same as that is used in our naval hospitals for the recovery of scorbutic people." Here we go. The soup should be ready. Basically, as soon as I put that sauerkraut in, you can serve it up. If you want to let it warm up, that's okay too. Let's go ahead and give this a try. Got a nice beefy flavor. The onions are great. It's not quite as bitter as you might expect it, because sometimes sauerkraut really comes in with a lot of sourness, but it's kind of balanced out by the amount of liquid that was really in there with the beef broth.